friends, let's talk about using an LCD display with an Arduino. Here we are in our favorite Tinkercad. I'm going to click Start Simulation, and you'll notice that it thoughtfully displays my name. Before we get to the programming, I do want to talk a little bit about the wiring, and let's just say it looks like a lot, okay? And it is. You do have to be pretty thoughtful when you're wiring it up in Tinkercad, and even more so when you're wiring up your project with actual hardware. It's hard to keep track of which wires go where, and I totally respect that. So just be patient with yourself, and if you have any issues, the first place you want to check is wiring. I won't trace every wire for you. They're thoughtfully color-coded, but take a look at the differences between the ones that go to ground versus power, and note that happily within Tinkercad, you can hover over each pin and know what it identifies as. Plus, notice you don't have to use all of them. When you look over at the Arduino itself, it does take up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What are we getting? 6 pins, but it does leave us some room still to connect other inputs and outputs. Okay, so let's talk now about what's happening in the program. So you do need to start off with hashtag include liquidcrystal.h. That calls up the LCD library for the Arduino to reference. And then line 3 is referencing what pins are connected to what parts of the LCD. You can certainly rearrange these if you want, but I think it makes sense to stick with what is the default. All right. The setup in this is pretty straightforward. LCD.begin is saying, hey, Arduino, you are connected to an LCD that is 16 columns and 2 rows. So you have that to enjoy and look at. Let's talk about these rows for a second. So if you look over here, you'll notice we've got, there are only 15 showing, and there's only according to this one row. But you've already figured out it actually starts by counting at 0. So there are a total of 16 columns and 2 rows, but we'll talk about why that matters as far as sequence and numbering. Down here in the loop, lcd.setCursor, notice there's a capital C just to keep us on our toes. 2, 0 is saying this is where I want you to position the cursor. lcd.print, and then in parentheses, whatever string you'd like to appear, will print that string, those characters, right there. Let me stop the simulation and let's change up what we have as far as our 2 parameters. We'll start it up again. Now you'll notice it moved over to 0, 0. It's in the top left. I'll stop simulation again, change the first number to 1, start the simulation. It moved over to the first column. So the first number, the first parameter, is the column moving from left to right. The second parameter, I'm going to change it to a 1 as well, is the row. So now this will put us on the bottom row. There's only 2 rows, but remember the first row is 0, the second row is 1. The first column is labeled as 0. The second is labeled as 1, all the way to 15. So you do have to wrap your head around that a little bit. Now, what if we want to do something a little more interesting instead of a static display? Let me do some quick typing. Oh, I am so fast. Okay, now let me start this up again. Shows my name, shows principles of tech, shows my name, shows principles of tech, over and over again. What's happening here? Well, let's take a look at the code once again, my friends. We've already seen what the first 2 lines did. Then I put a delay in, so you would see Rod Milstead for 1 second. Then I'm clearing it. I'm setting the cursor now to be column 2, which is the third one over, row 0, and it prints principles of there. Then I'm setting the cursor to column 6, row 1, and that puts the word tech on the bottom row somewhat centered. That will stay there for a 1 second delay, 1,000 milliseconds, and then LCD.clear clears the LCD. It goes back to the top and does it over and over and over again. So that's the basics of displaying data on an LCD using an Arduino. I hope you've enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed making it. Have a great day.